Did Ninko change his shirt, by the way?
I love it.
Is that the fourth
Barbie,
Hawaiian
that's his
shirt of the
vote.
week?
Barbie, right there.
Yeah, we're having a look. This
one has pineapples with sunglasses. I love it.
Such a weirdo.
Well, man, how could I not go out and immediately buy one of those? Look, we have so much fun here every morning. We are so grateful to every single person who gets up with us and spends their time with us on ESPN. We come to you live every morning above the Heineken River Deck at Pier 17. I tell you what, today is jam-packed. Hit the open for hour number 2. We got a lot to do. We're getting up with Say It Ain't So Joe. Burrow carted off. We have the very latest update from Cincinnati. You can't miss it. Plus, holy smoke, did you hear all the things that Sean Payton had to say yesterday? The fallout is furious, and it begins right here. And then the D in Big D stands for desperation. If this thing doesn't go as planned, who takes the fall? The coach or the quarterback? It's a Football Friday, people, and hour number 2 starts right now with our developing story out of Cincinnati. Joe Burrow carted off the Bengals practice field yesterday. Shefty was on with us earlier, and it does appear as though it is a strained calf. Now, that case, I guess, can mean a lot of things. Right. To the eye, that looked like a really, really scary moment.
That looked like their Super Bowl hopes just went up in smoke. That looked like, could it have been an Achilles? Yep. That was the fear initially when a lot of us watched it. Now, the fact that they're saying strained calf, that is best case scenario given what it looks like. Now, we still don't know how long Joe Burrow will be away from the field. Greeny, we talked about this earlier. The contract situation looming. So that also plays into effect. The injury and the contract.
Yeah, I always turn, whenever there's injury news, you start with doctors and then you go to football players because no one knows the human body better than they do. Ninko, when you first saw that, what was your first reaction?
Oh boy. That was the first thing I said to myself. This is a huge injury for the Cincinnati Bengals in their hopes of making it deep in the playoffs, Super Bowl appearance. That right there, a calf injury, whatever it is, because you could say it's a calf, but to never put weight on it, to have a cart come out, I understand they're trying to be very cautious to make sure that he doesn't injure it further. But as a player, you know when you see your stud quarterback go down like that, it's never a good thing. So we don't know the severity, we don't know the degree of injury, but I do know, because I've had a calf injury, they really are annoying. It's an annoying injury because you have to use your calf for everything you do. A hamstring, anything else, you can go up to a certain percentage unless you're a corner or a running back, and you won't injure it further. But a calf, especially his right calf, he's planting his back leg, he's pushing forward, throwing the football. It's a very important piece to a quarterback. So again, really unfortunate, and we'll find out how long he's out.
Yeah, absolutely. At the moment there's any further news on the injury and the severity, of course, we'll have it immediately. In the meantime, Kimberly touched on it, Mike T. The contract element of all this does loom pretty large in the story as well.
Absolutely. You know, it sounded like they were days away from getting something done now that Justin Herbert signed his big deal, Green. So if I'm Cincinnati, I'm telling Joe Burrow, his agents, his family, like, hey, look, we got to get you healthy, and we're going to get this contract done. Hopefully it's just, you know, crossing T's and dotting I's, Greeny, but I would just tell Joe, look, for your sake, our sake, the organization, the city, you are not on the field again until we get this massive extension done. So let's get you healthy. Let's button up the contract, and then we can move forward. And Greeny, I got to tell you, my heart was in my throat yesterday just watching what was going on. Unfortunately, I went through with the Dolphins when Ryan Tannehill went down with a non-contact injury, and 32 teams go out to practice this time of year with hope and optimism. And you just hope something like this doesn't happen, and hopefully he'll be okay. And you got to make sure that when it's these star players, you try to take some of the pressure off of their shoulders. And in this case, it certainly can be the contract.
Yeah, I mean, as a football fan, there's just nothing worse than the training camp injury. And just to remind everyone what Mike T is talking about, you were the GM of the Dolphins. You were coming off a playoff season. Tannehill gets hurt in training camp, and an hour later, what were you doing?
Yeah, we were calling Jay Cutler to come out of the Fox broadcast booth, and we had a good team, felt like we were going to run it back and make improvement. And, it was early in training camp, like with Joe Burrow, non-contact injury. And, you're publicly, you're saying all the right things like, hey, the season's not over. But in the back of your mind, you're like, oh gosh, like this is worst case scenario. And you go from hope to optimism. And then, like I said, in that case, we pivoted to Jay Cutler. And I'm telling you, like every team has that in the back of their mind. We saw a couple of years ago, Teddy Bridgewater goes down. They trade for Sam Bradford in the middle camp between Minnesota and Philly. It's not ideal, but those are things that coaches, GMs, that's what's in the back of your mind this time of year.
So, again, to be clear, it does not appear that we are there with Cincinnati. It appears that this is not going to be an injury of anywhere near that level of severity, but we will wait and see. It didn't look good. But again, hopefully it will wind up being best case scenario and he's back at least for the start of the regular season. Now, Shefty also told us about another huge injury in the NFL yesterday. Because Burrow got hurt, this might not have gotten the attention that it deserves. The Dolphins, Jalen Ramsey, will undergo surgery on the meniscus in his left knee. He is expected to miss the start of the regular season, but will he be back in time for week 1 against the Chargers? The expectation is no. Jalen Ramsey himself tweeted last night, "I'll be back on that field stronger than ever in due time. This is so minor for God's child. I trust fully and know he got me. I'm forever grateful." He goes on to say, appreciate the love and support. Bottom line, he was on Twitter yesterday talking about being back, but this sounds like a significant injury.
And Jalen Ramsey also tweeted that end of the season push is going to be legendary. The fact that we don't know, is he going to miss just the start of the season or is he going to miss most of the season? This is a big deal for a big-time free agent who joins a new team in this division, and especially with the Dolphins. They open up against Justin Herbert and the Chargers, followed by the Patriots, Broncos, and Bills. He was one of the big acquisitions this offseason. So if you're a Dolphins fan, you're just crushed because this is a team that has, if Tua is healthy, this could end up being the best team in the division, but a lot of injuries and a lot of question marks with the Dolphins.
I'll go farther. If Tua is healthy, I think they have the best roster in the AFC. This is a team that added Bradley Chubb last year. This is a team that added Jalen Ramsey. He's a big part of the reason that I say that. They obviously have the Olympic track team at wide receiver, and all of it is based on the quarterback. But, Ninko, I'll come to you on that injury. He's a corner and it's a knee. That's a bad combination. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think we'll see him for a long time. Maybe 8 weeks. That's a really tough, number one, the position, because you have to be full speed every time you're on the field. You're covering the fastest men on the field in the receiving corps. So when you think about the injury itself, there's also severities of meniscus injuries, and I've had one. I've had mine fixed, and I've had mine removed, and all that fun stuff. So I know exactly how it feels, and it's hard to get back up to speed. So right now, the Dolphins have a bunch of talent. We know they're going to be able to score a lot of points. Defensively, you hope that the young guys that step up in his position are able to match that. They're not going to be the same as Ramsey, but you hope that by platooning or having a couple guys move around a little bit, you have some production there to where you don't miss them that much.
Mike T, final word.
Yeah, next man up. They didn't have a first-round pick, but I love Cam Smith, their second-round corner out of South Carolina. He's going to get a big opportunity, and as Kmart alluded to, they start with the Chargers with a good passing game, so hopefully he's back before the end of the season. But Cam Smith, I think, will play well for them.
Training camp injuries, so tough all around the sport and a reality of pro football. So we will see big ones in Cincinnati and Miami. And there's just no way to overstate the significance of this story. And we've had so much reaction from so many places. Look who's back with us. It's been a long time since we've said good morning to Brooke Pryor, who, of course, covers the Steelers for us and can give us some reaction before anything else on this. What kind of reaction were you hearing around the Steelers and around the division on the injury to Burrow?
Yeah, Greeny, I think what I heard was a collective gasp when I was out here yesterday because the Steelers were just finishing up signing autographs after their first training camp practice. I was standing just behind where I am now, and you could kind of see everybody check their phones and eyebrows are raised. The video was just coming out at that point. And I think around this division especially, teams were holding their breath because Joe Burrow's availability can completely change the landscape and the makeup of this division, especially when you look at how the Bengals start this season. They're going to play two divisional opponents right off the top. This is one of the most competitive divisions in football, and his availability could completely change how this all shakes out.
Absolutely. I actually think it is the best division in the sport. Brooke, stay with me a second. I just want to bring Ninko back in one more time on this before we move to other things, because Nink, now you said it earlier, and I've been fascinated by your perspective on this. You've seen a lot of calf injuries. Have you ever seen the kinds of precautions taken that we saw yesterday?
I've never seen a calf strain carted away. That's my only concern. I've never seen someone with a calf strain. Usually you have the calf strain, you try and put a little weight on it. Okay, it's tweaked, you know it's hurt, but you still have some help. You get off the field, you're okay. The cart is what scares me. That's the scariest thing, because as a player, I've only been carted off twice. And in those 2 times, I tore my ACL, MCL, PCL, meniscus, cartilage. I tore everything in one shot. And then the next time I tore my other one. So the hard part about seeing the cart is when you're on the field as a player, you know it's not good. So hopefully this is just a strain and everything's fine. And it's just a calf strain. And there's like a variety of ways that you can injure your calf. You can do it lower or higher, and there's so many different ways and variables to the length of time that this injury will be. We don't know, but I would say this: the cart as a player is something you never want to see.
No, but between that and just the way he pulls up in that moment and doesn't put any weight on it, I think there remains, at least in my mind, some cause for concern here. I'm not suggesting in any way that they're not telling us the truth, but that just looked bad. Again, we await further news out of Cincinnati. You will hear it the moment that we get it. In the meantime, Brooke, let me come back to you, because the AFC North, it's such an incredibly tough division. And I feel like the team that has, for the most part, dominated it for decades is the one that no one is talking about. So here's the deal with Kenny Pickett. He was a first-round pick, just like all the other quarterbacks in his division. Brooke, it feels like he's sort of the overlooked one in the division. What are the early impressions as he begins his second year?
Well, Greeny, that demeanor that Mike T's talking about, it's giving Kennergy. You'll get that if you go see Barbie today with Dalvin Cook. But I can tell you his vibe is so confident coming into this camp, and it's so different from a year ago when he was competing with Mitch Trubisky for that starting job. I've only seen him throw about 20 passes in team period to this point because the Steelers have had one practice. They're still in shorts. But to me, the most impressive and maybe telling thing is an incompletion that he threw. It was the first pass of the first team period, and it was a deep ball to George Pickens on the sideline. It looked pretty. Did not get completed because Patrick Peterson was there to break it up. But it showed that, hey, maybe they're going to get George Pickens involved. And maybe Kenny Pickett, maybe he's Knuff.
We will see. Again, those are references I don't understand, but I'm hoping most people watching do. And it is a delight to see you again, Brooke. And we'll be working all season long here as the Steelers begin. And I'll bring Ninko back in on this. And the Steelers are sort of the overlooked team. The 2 legendary coaches in the AFC have the teams that no one is talking about, right? Bill with the Patriots, your guy, and your team, and Tomlin with the Steelers. And I think sometimes we overlook the fact they both have first-round pick quarterbacks. We talk about Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett like they are nothing. They were both first-round draft picks. Do you expect the Steelers to be right there with Cincinnati, with Baltimore, and maybe Cleveland as this season goes on in that tough division?
Oh, yeah, they'll be competitive. I 100% think that the Steelers will be a competitive football team. And this, if you're a Steeler, you're in the locker room, you see that Joe Burrow goes down with an injury, you're saying, oh, okay, like, hey, that really stinks for them, but it gives us a shot. We're going to get after this division. And when you have a very good division filled with teams that are right there, you kind of don't mind being the less talked about team that everyone's counting out and saying you're going to finish last place. If you're the head coach, if you're Tomlin, you're Belichick, you walk in the room, you say, listen, nobody believes that we're going to do anything this season. Let's go out and shock some people, and let's go out there and play football, because at the end of the day, you got to step on that football field. You got to play at a high level to win, no matter what you are. If you're a bad football team in the NFL, you could still beat the best team. It's how you perform on Sundays.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.